welcome everyone to the Bebop. My name is Samson Richoppy. I was asked to moderate this thing. I'm a student at Suffolk University. I'm active on the Libertarian Party Committee. I'm part of that big Freedom Rally Pop Fest that's on the Boston Common every year. All right, I participate in Massey, the nonprofit that does that. And I kind of knew people on both sides of this border debate. I know the Resist Marxism group. I'm very good friends with them. I stand with them at events, and I know the people who are supposed to be on the open border side. But unfortunately, as you all know from your public safety announcements that I guess happened, there's a lot of controversy about this. And unfortunately, a lot of the people on the open border side got targeted, they got harassed, and they got intimidated into dropping out. I don't fault them for doing it. They have a professional career, they have like personal lives they have to deal with, but it's unfortunate that that's where we're at. I'd like to thank you all once again for coming out, because the fact that you're here no matter what side you're on, you still show that you're willing to engage in rigorous academic debate. And that's what we wanted to have happen here, and that's what we're still shooting for tonight. So without further ado, I want to introduce Justin. Is it Justin Kumar Ashbrook? Am I saying that correct? He's the president of the Young Americans for Liberty at Berklee. He's the main organizer. I'd like to welcome him and ask him to say a few words.
Loudly. Yeah. So I'm really glad this debate happened. At times I didn't think it would happen. I sat through many meetings with the administrators, with the dean of student affairs, the club's director, and a lot of people were trying to make me. Yeah, and a lot of people. A lot of people went through a lot of lengths to try to make this not happen, but I'm very glad it did happen. And it's a great day for free speech and the diversity of thought. And I really just want everyone to hear opinions that they might not agree with and just learn something tonight. Thanks.
What I'd like to do next is just pass this around and ask each participant to introduce themselves. Just very quickly, give like 30 seconds, who you are, what you're all about, what brought you here, and whatever else you want people to know about. I'll start with Mark here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mark. I am one of the original organizers in Resist Marxism. If you all remember the Rally for the Republic last year, that was us. I want to thank Yale for inviting us to debate. I think debates are excellent ways to exchange ideas. I hope we can all believe that free speech is important. And no matter what side of the debate you're on, we're here supporting free speech. I'd also like to say to the Democratic Socialists of America, you were invited to debate and you cowardly backed out or cowardly didn't accept. We're here if you want to come debate us. You know, you've been calling us Nazis for a year. Where are you? This was your chance. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
All right, my name is Brandon Navom. I have been involved in just about every organization you can possibly imagine. I'm the state chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus. I started Freedom Coders, freedomcoders.org. And yeah, I can talk louder. Thank you. All right, find us at fightforthefirst.org. I'm here. I'm really glad to be here. I'm really glad we didn't let people silence us. And thank you guys so much on this side for jumping in. You guys really are amazing. I appreciate you so much. I want to hear a broad and diverse range of opinions. So thank you guys so much. And visit us at fightforthefirst.org. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Lukasz Leon Pawlikowski. Everybody can hear me? Okay, my name is Lukasz Leon Pawlikowski. I'm a Berklee student. I'm the Vice President for Young Americans for Liberty at Berklee chapter. And I'm joining. I originally supposed to be the co-moderator of the whole debate, but unfortunately we don't have enough people for the open borders side, so I'm gonna join Justin for this side of the debate for tonight. Thanks everybody for coming. You're great.
Yeah, we can pass it on.
Who's gonna take the mic?
Right on.
Yeah. So you just heard from me, but my name is Justin again. I'm the president and founder of the Young Americans for Liberty chapter at Berklee, and I want to thank everyone for coming tonight again.
Hey everyone, I'm Coombs. I'm the craziest, second craziest political guy you'll ever meet in Boston, and I'm glad to be here. I'm the chair of the Mises Caucus of the LP in Massachusetts, and thanks everyone for coming that did show up.
Which way am I looking? Hi, my name is Patrick Suter. I'm really good friends with Justin, and that's how this debate was just a small idea we had one night. Actually, that night it was snowing back in November. We were just hanging out. We said, let's have a debate. And little did I know that we would set the Berklee campus on fire just by wanting to get together like this. I apologize if any of those posters on Mass Ave offended anybody, but they're not true. That's why that's the left's tactic. They don't want us to have any kind of rational exchange of ideas. They want to control the street game, and Resist Marxism's taking it away from them, and they're angry.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all for the introduction. I just want to go over the rules real quick. We're going to have it's going to be a handful of questions. We originally planned on 2 questions. The first one was going to be for the open borders side. They were going to argue in favor of open borders. They were going to define what that is. They're going to argue in favor of it for a few minutes, and then we're going to pass it over to the opposing side, who will argue why they were wrong. And this will go back and forth a handful of times until we feel like there's no more points being made. We're just repeating the same things, and we'll move on to the next question. And that's the United States federal government has the legal authority to regulate immigration and vet immigrants prior to entry into the United States. So then the team that is in favor of that, they'll give their intro, they'll try to sell you their side of the story, and it'll go over to the opposing side. In the process of doing this, we're not going to call anybody derogatory names. It's pretty ridiculous that I have to. This is actually in the rules. This is rule number 1. No calling anyone a Nazi, commie, fascist, racist, bigot, homophobe, pinko, or any other slanderous remarks aimed at rendering debate incapacitated. Usage will result in us politely asking you to leave with a smile on our faces, and then it'll just get worse from there. After we are done with the formal portion of the debate, any questions that you all have, I encourage you to ask them. So one at a time, we will use this microphone. I, as the moderator, will acknowledge you. We'll let you say your piece, and whoever it is that you're addressing can address whatever it is you have to say. So without further ado, I would like to ask the open borders side, right? You are affirming the fact that the United States should adopt an open borders policy. What I would like you to do is define what you mean by open borders, and then go ahead and sell us on your case. I'm going to pass this microphone on over, figure out who wants to speak first. Thank you.
Okay. Hey guys, open borders. So, as question 2 states, as opposing question 2, open borders is when the federal government or state government does not have the authority under the Constitution to pass laws restricting the freedom of movement of movement. So why? So when we talk about keeping people safe from things like terrorism or anything else, I think it's important to recognize that the private sector does a much better job at keeping people safe and vetting immigrants coming into the country. For example, people take a plane here, United Airlines or whatever. They have a strong incentive to not to make sure that people do not come in who are sick or who are terrorists on their planes. If that happens, United stock will come down, will plunder. Another example is, well, you could just say, well, people will swim across the border. If people swim across the border, whoever owns land on the border will also have a strong incentive to vet them and make sure they're not terrorists, make sure they're not really sick, because people do not want to be that person who lets someone in like that. They don't want to be the person who, causes harm to society. People are good. I have faith in people. I have faith in the free market, and I think it's important to recognize that people have better solutions than government. Thank you.
Let me just add to that. I believe that United States should be open to everybody who is willing to contribute the best they can to improve the whole country. This country is really important for the whole history of mankind. It's the country of liberty, the country of constitution, and the country of new world, new change. Everybody from around the world created this country almost 300 years ago, and now, in these times, when it's so important to focus and review the policies of the changing world, we need to go to the roots. We need to find out how the best things could happen to this land, which we call right now in the United States of America. And in this spirit, we should be open to every new idea to be updated with the changing world. Thank you. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, thank you. So right now, what we're looking at is that over 90 to 95% of the immigrants coming into this country right now. What?
Slower, higher.
Over 90.
Forget about the mic. That's just for him.
Okay, so over 90% of the immigrants that we're seeing right now are coming to this country legally right now. When you put it all into proper perspective, right now, the immigrants that are coming to this country. What? The immigrants that are coming into this country right now, once you put it into proper perspective, it's not Canada, it's not from overseas for the most part. It's mostly coming from our southern border. Once it goes into proper perspective, we're only looking at a small amount of immigrants that are coming into this country illegally. And when we look at the huge gangs and all the crazy gangbangers that are coming up here from Central America, the solution there isn't so much migration restrictions as it is simply locking them up and not getting them out of jail with our corrupt parole and criminal system. Now, as far as migration itself is concerned, that deals with the issue of property. Right now, the border itself is state and federally owned. I don't think anything should be state, let alone federally owned. And I think that can just be sold off to the highest bidders and that all property was privately owned. Then you would have to get consent from the landowners, and including road and highway owners, and that way everything would need consent and everything would work itself out. That said, I do think that the biggest way we can reform our immigration system right now, for better or worse, hopefully for better, is to take out the middle independent moderates and get the two extremes, the far right and the far left, together. This is Ron Unz's point. I would suggest all of you go home either today, tomorrow, and go to unz.com and read what he has. But I would suggest that essentially immigration can be done by consent rather than federal borders. According to our Constitution, the feds are supposed to only have jurisdiction over naturalization. That's over becoming a citizen. Migration restrictions traditionally were done at the state level. So I do believe that the border states, California, Texas, Arizona, can each have their own experimental policies rather than have a one-size-take-all. Thank you.
Before you all start, I just want to ask one question for you all to elaborate. Your definition of open borders is no restrictions at all, whether it's country of origin or no restrictions on numbers. Is that correct?
Well, the numbers is arbitrary. Right now, the H-1B visa is currently capped. I believe it's 85,000. So it's going to be arbitrary no matter what happens. Ideally, our visa system, it would not be done directly with immigrants. Companies and corporations should be able to buy visas directly and auction off, whether ideally by the states, but the feds in the time being, and they'd be able to do it rather than have an arbitrary number. The O visa, for example, and you Berklee kids are going to love this. The O visa is for music and artists and people like that. It's not capped. Theoretically, millions of immigrants could come here legally tomorrow on the O visa, but they don't because that's mainly for musicians, artists. Whereas right now, the H-1B visa is capped. So
I don't want to take away from the other team's thunder because I know that they're going to hammer on this too. But so right now, your position is no restriction on numbers. Is there going to be any checks whatsoever before a person is allowed into the country?
I think that we'll have to make a case for numbers at some point, but the whole thing is not about the numbers, it's about the merit.
Yeah, so private companies can set those things if they want, but not through a law, not through a federal government.
Okay. So I thank you for your introduction. I'd like to introduce Mark Sahady to continue with his side.
So we're Resist Marxism, or at least I am, and Brandon is associated with it. So if you know anything about us, we are American nationalists. So we are going to argue from the position of America first. Open borders would mean that anyone, anywhere in the world that has the means or the ability to get here could come. If you know anything about the world's population right now, there are over 8 billion people in the world. According to statistics we've looked at, going at the poverty rate, meaning they make $5.50 or less, almost half the world's population is poor. Do you really think it's going to be in the interest of American citizens to have everyone that can get here migrate here? Also, look at the news recently. We had the caravans in the news. The caravans, we had NGOs, the non-government organizations helping them get here. If you look at our southern neighbors, they are extremely poor. Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, they also have extremely high crime rates. That would not be in our interests to have them come here. What we've seen, too, if you look at statistics regarding welfare, right now, immigrants, it just came out this week, 63% of immigrant-headed household families are collecting welfare services. As American nationalists, we're not against immigration. We're just saying it's the right kind of immigration. It does not serve the interests of the American people to have someone come here and go on welfare. Their rates are much higher than the native-born population. It doesn't mean that those are bad people. It just makes sense. If you're poor, you're going to be qualified for welfare. That would not be within our interests. Also, it's our country. The country is there to serve American citizens. There's been many, many instances of crimes committed by immigrants against America. Again, we're not against all immigrants, but we should be able to vet those immigrants. We should be able to look at their backgrounds and say, do you have a criminal record, or are you not? We cannot verify your criminal record. We do not want criminals here. Take a look at terrorism. Foreign-born in the people who have committed terrorist acts in the last 20 years are highly overrepresented. Look at the Boston Marathon bombings. Look at 9/11. Look at the Pulse nightclub in Florida. Those are not people we want in this country. Take a look at your wages. If mass immigration is so great for Americans, remember the 1965 Immigration Act is what opened this country to mass immigration. Look at real wages before 1975. They were coming up. Americans have not had a raise essentially since 1975. If immigration was such a boon to the American citizen, then where is our medium rise in incomes? It's not there. Immigration also, low-skilled immigrants. It's a threat to the standard of living of our own poor. For one, they're competing with entitlements against our poor, and also they're competing for jobs. Everyone here, some libertarians, they'll tell us they believe in free markets. If there's an increase in the amount of oil, they'll say gas prices will go down, right? Why doesn't the free market apply to labor to them? If there's an increase in the number of people that are doing your job, your wages will go down. I'm a software engineer. I've seen that. I'm not against the H-1Bs. We need them right now. We need a lot of them. But companies will abuse the system, and that is a threat to my standard of living. So we are Resist Marxism, and we are arguing for an America First position. So if someone has a different ideology, a different philosophy, or different values, we're probably not going to agree. Our values put American citizens first. Thank you very much.
All right, so you mentioned the countries of El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. And violence, was it? What is fueling the violence in those countries?
Okay, so for one thing, those on the left continue to like to tell us that poverty leads to violence, and that's why there's high crime rates among populations of the U.S. that are poor. So one, it would be poverty. I suppose it would also be lack of resources. I've actually been to Honduras. I was in the Army, and I was in Honduras. If you're in Honduras, you'll realize that they have a lack of water. They have a lack of access to dental hygiene or any hygiene. They have zero lack of resources. That's one thing. Also, the government in Honduras is extremely corrupt. It's extremely corrupt. Now, that's up to the Honduran people to fix their own government. In the United States, we had our revolution when we didn't like our rulers. They need to have a revolution if that's the case and overthrow their rulers.
Aren't you setting up an argument that says that these are legitimate political refugees and they should be allowed into our country?
So the UN Commission of Human Rights, when they set the refugee program, people are abusing it now. No. Having poverty in your country does not make you eligible to be a refugee. Having crime in your country does not make you eligible to be a refugee. What makes you eligible to be a refugee is if you are a member of a targeted population. Most of these people it does not apply to.
All right, one more question before we turn it back over to the other team. You mentioned American nationalism. That's become quite a controversial term in our country today. Can you define what you mean by that?
I said at the beginning, American nationalism. It means America first, American citizens first. When it comes to our laws, all of our laws in this country should be based off of what is in the best interest of the American citizen and what are our preferences. If this is our country, we own it. Any laws need to serve us.
And let me say, there is a big difference between American nationalism or civic nationalism and white nationalism, right? American nationalism, civic nationalism says that the ideas of America are what make us great, right? I do not believe in manifest destiny. I do not believe that anyone, that because of the color of my skin, that I'm better than anyone else. I believe that we are successful as Americans because of our ideals, because of our Enlightenment principles, because of our egalitarian principles. And it's those ideas that make us successful. That civic nationalism that says that we are the best because we have the best ideas, because Western democracy, Western civilization has produced the best results. And that is what we believe in.
So I just got word that we have been kicked out of this venue and we have to leave. So we have 5 minutes to go.
All right. Do we get a rebuttal or quick rebuttal on the crime stuff? Couldn't agree more. Lock them up. But here's the thing. Go on UNS.com right now. Myth of Hispanic crime. Hispanic crime rates are literally the same as white native crime rates. It's the same deal. When it comes to lower wages, 1800s, we had relatively open borders, lots of immigrants. Wages were going up. The reason wages are going down right now isn't because of immigrants, which are relatively small in the overall working population. The reason wages are going down relatively is because of the Federal Reserve, which is an entirely different debate for another day. Thirdly, with respect to the nationalism bit, couldn't agree more. I'm a nationalist too in its own way. But America isn't a nation. We're like a bastard nation of 20 different types of people. People from Texas different than people from Massachusetts. We should have an assimilationist policy when it comes to immigrants. Massachusetts voters in 2002 agreed with this. English first in the public schools, rather than the bilingual English. What we need to do with immigrants is try to make at least their children, the second generation immigrants, more American, so to speak. So that's how I see it.
Okay, let me. Can I just rebut the immigration? You will hear that immigrants have less crime than American citizens. Per capita.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Yep.
Yeah. I have the tab in my hand. Close up all the tabs and
Yep.
finish up the live stream.
All right.
Finish up the live stream.
This is a mischaracterization of the numbers. Legal immigrants commit less crime than American citizens because they know they will be held accountable and they will be removed under our system of law. And they're vetted. Illegal immigrants are worse. So this is why we need more legal immigration and less illegal immigration. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks for tuning in. I'd like to ask if anybody would like to give a reaction outside.
Identity.
Yeah.
That is different from citizenship, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
immigrants, you're saying that immigrants who are citizens might not necessarily be American.
Yeah.
Because you're saying there is an American identity. So I want to understand what
Yeah,
that means.
yeah. It's linguistics.
No,
It's really
hold
important.
on. So
But I want you
this
to
is
explain.
this is a really good question, right? Because like for example, when I went to England, no, I was in France, and there was a guy with a New York Yankees hat on, right? And I was giving him crap because I'm a Red Sox fan, and he had no idea what the New York Yankees were, right? He didn't know the NY hat was a New York Yankees hat. What he was saying was he was into fashion, and it was the New York identity of fashion, right? So I think that there is an American citizenship and there's American culture and identity, right? And I think one of the most profound and amazing things is that there are many people who share in this American cultural and identity who are around the world, right? And so for me, I think we have to look at, when you talk about America, we talk about what makes us different, right? Why does it seem like we went from, You know, 200 years ago, we were some backwater country that nobody even cared about. And then we've become the most successful country in the world. How did that happen, right? And how can we franchise those ideals, right? And so to
you're
me,
saying that, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to ask. So you're saying that these ideals
Yeah.
that make up the culture have their genesis within America and they're not imported from the outside?
They're imported from
no.
well, they're imported from
They-
England.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So you're
So-
saying they're specifically imported from England?
Yes.
So
No,
as long as
I,
from
a
England,
lot of
they're
it
based
is.
in America.
I think,
I
you
make
know,
that argument,
I
yeah.
think America, if you more than anything, it's a melting pot, right? It's an understanding that you can take the best ideas of what works and what does not. You know, our country was set up as a federation of 50 sovereign individual states who are all supposed to experiment and have the autonomy to be able to say this works and then spread those ideas to everybody else.
So who
And
gets to decide what works and what doesn't?
you do. You want to.
But then I'm not from here.
Well, it's an assimilation process. So it is true. America is many different races. So I disagree strongly with the white nationalists. I don't agree with any of that. But when it comes to American nationalism, admittedly, the immigration policy is always going to be flawed no matter what we have. All other countries in Europe, for example, or even in the Middle East or East Asia, Japan, for example, has some of the most restrictive nationalist immigration you'll ever see. They want to have a culture that they preserved and had for over 1,000 years. But at the same time, you are right though that we are a multiracial nation. We always have been. since the
I just want to
beginning.
understand when you say we get to decide it as Americans. I just want to understand what exactly, because that's a very ambiguous term.
Well,
so when you
I
say
think
we,
they're
what
referring
exactly?
to
are you
the
referring to?
51%, the majority, that they can take
So
the
you're
rights away
saying-
from everyone else.
Sorry?
Sorry.
I think what they're referring to is the majority through voting.
Well,
could
so
be
the
wrong.
United States has a legislative process, and through that legislative process, they set these rules. That's
Right.
what I think that they mean by that.
So on the committee that gets to decide this legislation, there are people of different nationality, of originally different nationalities as well. And now they may be American either because they're born here or they immigrated here.
Right.
So you're saying those people have an equal say in the American identity.
I wouldn't say an equal say.
You wouldn't say equal. That's what I wanted to know.
Well, what I would say that we were 50 different states in.
Okay.
Well, I would
What's
argue
the
that we're
difference?
50 different states, and I would say that Massachusetts should have its own say for people in New York.
Look at how diverse this group is.
But I
We
told
know that we're not a diverse group, and we have to leave. I think this is craziness.
But it's about.
We're just went into a private establishment and they kicked us the fuck out.
Not just English language, so that's important, but also English, essentially common law, English traditions, even the English religion, Anglican Protestantism. So when later immigrants came here, no matter what race or religion they came from, especially their children would come here and they would adapt and assimilate to what essentially was founded by English Protestant people, so to speak, if that makes any sense. Now
So
we do have the
you're
first.
saying
We
that
do have a.
that gives them primary citizenship, or that gives them a primary say in American culture?
I'm not going to
Is
go
that
into
what
the
you're saying?
citizenship debate.
But I just want to
because-
understand then how is that relevant?
Certainly culture, but at the same time, we have to remember we're not one nation. This is where nationalism gets flawed. America essentially is a bastard nation. People from Texas are very different than people from Boston. So my solution, I can speak only for myself, not everyone, but my solution would be to have 50 different experiments. We would have, people from New England are very different from people from Texas. And yet Hispanics in Texas, for the most part, do pretty well with their white counterparts. Same in California. So my solution to everything is decentralized, let 50 states have different policies. That's my way. But it is true, though. We were founded as an English nationalist nation. English language, English Christian culture, English common law, trial by jury. We have a First Amendment. You have a right to believe whatever you want as far as religion, and I'm strongly against the white nationalists. I don't know anyone here that could vouch
So you
for that.
mentioned English, but there's no mention of the native indigenous population to America? So they have no
before
stake.
English. No, they do.
They have
and
no
I'm
stake in
and
the-
I'm
in
actually
the identity?
100%. I'm 100% for getting rid of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, giving the Indians the tribal sovereignty that they have. They should be their own nations. They shouldn't be taxed. They shouldn't be regulated. They
But
should
it's
be
too
their
late
own.
for that because they've been destroyed now.
Sadly, yes. Well,
So
actually,
it's
I would.
easier to say that.
I agree. I agree.
To say they have to have their own nation, but how do you incorporate that into the American identity? That's my
At,
question.
at this point, since the Indians, I'm going to say Indians, not Native Americans, since I'm politically incorrect, I would say that the Indians are only a very small part of North America, not South America. They were a very small part of North America. Most of North America was virgin land when the English people came. You are absolutely right. The genocide was terrible. And as far as I'm concerned, I would get rid of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and I would let every single Indian tribe just have its own sovereignty. They'd be their own individual Indian nations. The Seminoles, the Sioux, and all of them. But you're all right. That was wrong. But most of the people that were migrating west, Manifest Destiny, they were essentially migrating to virgin land. So
there's so many Native American tribes who are serving in like government services, like the army, the Air Force.
You're correct.
So what do you have to say about
So
that?
Calvin Coolidge gave them citizenship in the 1920s. If they want to assimilate to America, they're welcome to. They're citizens. If they want to stay on their tribal lands, have casinos, and have an awesome mini city-state, they're welcome to. So my solution is to get rid of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which is a terrible organization, and give them 100% full tribal sovereignty. Even though I don't think it's a big issue in Massachusetts, but yeah, certainly out in the West. I used to live in South Dakota when I was in the military, and I saw.
Interesting fact for you: the word Massachusetts is an
Indian term. You're correct.
So that might lead a question.
I agree.
Get rid of every single government organization. I mean, every single agency everywhere in the United States.
I'd say every place on Earth, every land on Earth has been pillaged and raped by somebody at some point in history. For all we know. Oh, I mean, like, if you go back.
Imperialism, but you have to understand the difference between imperialism and colonialism. Imperialism is wrong. That's people like the English.
You don't think they feed into each other?
No, two very different things. Look at South Africa, for example. South Africa was raped and pillaged by the British. Winston Churchill, go back to the Boer Wars, 100% against it. The Dutch, on the other hand, the people from Holland, the Netherlands, went to South Africa, and they were very friendly with the South African tribes. They actually were colonists in the sense that they wanted to just mine the virgin lands, the diamonds, and just be on their own. It was the British that were the bad guys in South Africa. You have to separate the two. So imperialism and colonialism, admittedly generic.
But both nations still went and colonized. That's why they
the Dutch left the South African tribes, the Zulus, the Xhosas, they left them all alone. It was the British that were raping and pillaging and going crazy. That was evil. I'm 100%. And I'm an isolationist. I was against every single war in American history. America's always the bad guy in foreign affairs. So I'm against it. Imperialism is bad. Colonialism, if it's done voluntarily through virgin land, I think is okay. And look at other countries. India was raped and pillaged by the British, 100% against it. So what's wrong with saying English first, Italy first, Germany first, having our own people mind our own affairs and not interfering in other nations? So imperialism, 100% with you.
So I just have one last question.
Yes, sir.
So because you mentioned the British and the synonymity with.
You're crying about things that none of us can do anything about. It's history. It's in the past. It's gone. What we need to do is concentrate on what is now and what we're doing now. All of us, look at all of us here. All of us, creeds, colors, everybody, we're here now.
I don't know.
All of us have come from somewhere, somehow, some way, and we're here now. Crying about the past is wasting your time and wasting your breath.
But just getting back.
Here now.
So the United States
look towards the future.
Yeah. Hold on. Can we just let this guy speak?
The thing is, like, getting back to like the indigenous tribes. Still they're being.
Still going back.
But hold on a second. Just getting back to.
Draw the line between.
Nirvan, let me finish. Because getting back to the indigenous tribes, they're completely isolated, living completely below the poverty line. So what do you have to say about that? They were screwed in the 19th century during the mass.
Depended on government policy. There's a great
So if their open borders policy centuries ago, because they were unable to enforce their borders, is what caused the problem today. So this discussion was about open borders. We're America first. I don't know what you guys think, but we think that the country and our government exists to serve our interests and our people.
And you've all come here, all of you, to come here and be part of this great melting pot, this great thing, this amazing experiment that has never happened ever before in the history of mankind. You're all here. Look at you. You're all here. And you're all able to debate and talk.
Yeah, and I think it's an amazing thing. And, I focus on what can I do right now. I understand the frustration and the anger, but the fact of the matter is I wasn't there back then, right? So the question is, what can I do right now to make a Native American person's life better, right? What can I do to have an impact, right? And the best thing we can do is to look at what made America successful and give them the ability to be successful as well. And so what is that? That's autonomy, strong property rights, right? Free market capitalism in a system of law. Do you know that the reservations, they don't actually own the land under their reservations, and this robs them of the ability to leverage their property to engage in free market capitalism, to build an enterprise, to be successful.
Well, what would you have to say like about an incident like the North Dakota Access Pipeline? I mean that actually encroached through sacred grounds.
The Indians didn't have a problem with that.
There's a whole bunch of pipelines already there. They're terribly leaky. They're bad for the environment. This new pipeline is actually going to improve the infrastructure. It's supposed to be really highly tech. They're going to be able to know that there are leaks when these leaks occur.
Somebody has to, I think this gentleman has something to say. Yeah.
The new, if I'm not mistaken, the new North Dakota Access Pipeline took away land from Native Americans to eminent domain, if I'm not wrong. So are you saying that was a good idea?
That wasn't in North Dakota.
No.
That was in Iowa. In North Dakota, the Indian tribes actually were all for it. It wasn't until the last minute when the environmentalist lobby started in the Obama administration coming down on it. Again, eminent domain is bad. We're all against it, but that's not what's going on in North Dakota.
Somebody brought up a point on our page here.
FEE.org.
Somebody said indigenous Americans were unable to protect their borders. We must protect our borders. Good reaction.
It's a good point. Actually, I just said
That's a good point.
5 minutes ago. I don't know if they got caught on the live stream, but they were unable to prevent the mass immigration of peoples across their borders. They didn't actually have an open borders policy. They just were unable to prevent it. Right. And that did not work out so great for them. Why would we want that to happen to us? So, well, if what happened with this debate, we were invited by the Young Americans for Liberty. So this was not actually a Resist Marxism event. They invited us to debate an open borders group, and everyone in the open borders group except the one guy dropped out right there. So he gets a lot of credit for coming. He was going to debate us by himself. They all dropped out, and then somehow the far left activists in Boston may have found out we were in there, and eventually they asked us to leave. But we think we had a successful event. We all had a lot of fun. We all want to do it again.
We were having a very good spirited debate. We weren't causing any trouble. No one was complaining, and somehow they just started coming in and upsetting the restaurant. But we respect property rights. We'll leave.
So did they shut down your original venue at the Berklee College?
So when I made a request to have it at the Berklee College, they denied it because they said there wasn't enough time, which I think is reasonable. It was only a week before. And then it was supposed to be at Be Good. Be Good had to close early, unfortunately, so then we just decided to have it here instead. Berklee does want to do events on their campus next spring, so we're looking forward to that. One of the things we're thinking about is a capitalism versus socialism debate. I may be on the same side as these people who I was on the opposite side of this time on the issue of capitalism versus socialism. I think that would be a very good thing to do next semester coming up.
We are planning a whole bunch. We're doing a Liberty tour in 2019. So we're trying to figure out cities and dates right now so that people can plan in advance when our rally is going to be and where they're at. And we're also thinking about calling for a nationwide movement on those dates to turn out into wherever respective city that you are, turn out and resist Marxism with us. I think that's a good idea, and it's going to really build this movement quite a bit.
So it's just going to be like a continued series that kind of builds some momentum?
Right on, yeah. We're going to have a theme. We're going to announce the cities. We're going to try to recruit in the New England area. We have a bunch of places in mind already, but we haven't solidified dates and exact cities. But we really want to build this into a nationwide movement. And so we went on our Facebook page the other day. We put it out there that this was something we were interested in. We had people checking in from all across the world talking about how they wanted to run events in their respective cities. So I think this might really become a big thing.
Awesome, that's great to hear, because you don't want to see, you'd hate to see Boston turn into a Paris like a year from now because of, people aren't talking about the issues that are important, and they're kind of silenced by the media and nobody's talking.
Well, just don't put a carbon tax and raise gasoline to $7 or $8 a gallon, and then you won't have that. That's why they're protesting in Paris.
It's simply the birthplace of our revolution. We're not going to let this place fall without a fight.
Well, I always find it funny that these Antifa types, they think they're stopping fascism. They're actually enabling fascism, because if people don't have the right to free speech, or people see violence in their cities, they're going to call for extreme law and order. So they're not really actually doing anything to further their cause at all. It's actually kind of funny, And the other thing is, when they say that you can't do something, people naturally say, "You're not going to tell me I can't do that."